Hello, this is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today it's a really busy news day. It's pretty wild. We had an assassination of the former Japanese prime minister. Some pretty wild reactions to it. NPR deleted one of their headlines and then put in another one that was pretty bad. I didn't like the White House's response. But China is happy, of course, because you had a fierce friend to the United States, someone who was fighting against that evil regime, and we don't know all the details. It's still an evolving story, but I'm not going to show the video. You guys can go, out of respect, not going to show the video. You can easily find it, though. It does look like a failure on the security's part, but it's just my condolences to everyone, but particularly the people of Japan. They lost a really great figure, Shinzo, being assassinated. It's really wild. There's a lot of news on the Biden front. Do you remember the story when they were really upset about the Border Patrol agents who did not obviously whip migrants trying to cross the border? Well, they were still really trying to punish them, even though, and they did this long research about it, and it was obvious that they were not whipping those people with horse reins, but they still wanted to punish them. And it's just wild, and their own people have debunked them, but we have an administration that is so stuck on the message and their narrative that justice, truth, the law doesn't matter. And Biden has put out an executive order in regards to trying to protect abortion nationwide, but we know we've had the ruling of the Supreme Court that overturned Roe v. Wade and in Casey versus Planned Parenthood. Everyone who is honest at least knows that the constitutionality of those legal rulings were not good. They were not super precedents, thus us talking about it all the time. And now it's kicked back to the states, and that's not good enough for them. That's not good enough. So they're trying to find ways that they can help keep abortion alive, including things that violate the Hyde Amendment, which is really wacky. So when people try to tell you that abortion is between a woman and her doctor, it's not true. They expect everyone to participate in the sacrilege of abortion, and there is no such thing as mind your business. Think about Little Sisters of the Poor. Think about Hobby Lobby. They don't want it to be between a woman and her doctor. It is supposed to be a national thing that everyone participates in, and you're supposed to shut up about it while people keep continuously doing it. And I'm not going to be one of those people. And it's pretty wicked. There is no love of women with these rabid people just trying to defend it. There is no defense of women and trying to protect women. It is clearly trying to protect abortion, and we talked about that yesterday with Elizabeth Warren when she attacked angry that pregnancy crisis centers exist and outnumber Planned Parenthoods 3-1. These groups that try to help women to convince them to keep their babies and are willing to help them keep their babies. She thinks that's a bad thing. She's offended by it and is coming for them. That is crazy. And if that's the sort of world you support and the logic you support, I don't know what to say other than that is really evil. really evil. So we're talking about that today. Also, we touched on it yesterday that the oil in our strategic reserves did go to other places, but I wasn't aware that one of the places that it went was a company that was also tied to Hunter Biden. So there's so much liability with this kid, man, of the president, and it's so wicked. These people are so wicked. They're probably sweating bullets when that laptop came out, knowing that it could and should have derailed the race. They were probably I wish I could have been a fly on the wall when that information got out, because they went into overtime to trotting out people to say it was Russian disinformation, which wasn't true. And the White House wouldn't even like flat out say that it wasn't true, wasn't real, but they tried to like do thinly veiled things like, oh, the president couldn't have met this person on this day. It's not in a schedule. Like, yeah, I don't think they probably put that in a schedule for him to meet with like one of Hunter Biden's associates doing some shady stuff. I don't think they pencil that in the official like calendar thing, right? That doesn't mean it didn't happen. So they would do stuff like that, but they wouldn't deny the contents, and the people were clearly confirming different contents of the laptop with different emails. Like there was one chain that had Frank Lutz in it, and he responded to, and he was explaining it. I'm like, obviously this stuff is real, but they didn't care. They needed to be fake because they knew it was bad. And they impeached Trump because they knew he was onto something, and Rudy Giuliani was onto something, and they panicked, and they went after Trump, and they impeached him. But the danger to our democracy isn't Trump and the people who support Trump. I mean, there are dangerous people out there. And but if you think people the January 6th, it was a riot. I'm not going to ever deny that. It was a riot, but trying to overthrow our entire system because you don't get your way, how are you different than the people who you are claiming are a danger to our democracy? Biden openly defying the Supreme Court, them trying to get rid of the filibuster, and all these sorts of things. But really, his executive order today is just madness, and sort of the things that he said about the Supreme Court. But before we jump into it, like I said, it's a busy news day. I do want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on the website, check out different articles that I have, like the one that I keep talking about, the one I compare Frederick Douglass's "What is for the 4th of July to a Slave," and I compared that to the what's going on right now with abortion in our country. There's a lot of great comparisons in there, and I think you guys would really it would be really good if you read it. There's a lot of great points in there, and maybe there's a way that maybe you haven't thought to articulate the topic to other people. So like I've gotten responses from people that said, I agree with you on like 99% of the things, but I'm glad that I found your show because the way that you articulate things and put things into perspective has taught them to, also convey certain things better. Or people who were afraid to speak out have said, hey, I'm glad I found your show. I'm more encouraged to speak out. And I'm so grateful to hear that. So that's the mission here. I want people to not be afraid to speak out about these issues, because one day you will wake up and these crazy people will just have total control of our country. And unfortunately, we have a lot of crazy people who are in control of our country. It is not too late to fight back. It is not too late to push back and try to stop these people. But it is a fight. It is a fight. It is a fight. And if you would like to help Black Tea News, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate and support with a gift, whether it's $10, $20, $50 more. I really appreciate that. If you aren't able to, or you frankly don't want to, not going to beg, but I'm always going to ask. You can at least, share, tell other people to watch. That does also support Black Tea News. Commenting, sharing, liking. Make sure you're liking across all different platforms, on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitch. Follow across those different platforms. You guys can also support by checking out different merchandise on the website. I got a new shirt idea I'm gonna have to show later, but this one's funny with the Trump 2024 Make Crack Whack again. The My Money, My Business, I made that about the abortion because I was sick of people saying it's not your business when you want to involve taxpayer dollars. And they really, really are going to fight against the Hyde Amendment to get some of this stuff that they want to do across state lines. The Constitution is a glorious liberty document. Got all kinds of goodies, stuff that you guys can check out on the website, and that also does support. So please consider doing that. Also do write books. If you didn't know that, if you go to blacktnews.com, there's a banner that will have some of my books on there, and it'll take you to my book website. But I do have books for kids, chapter books for kids. They're not political books, but they do teach good, wholesome values in there. Some of the my viewers have gotten these for their kids and they really, really liked it. I saw one viewer who was an adult who read it and they're like, "Oh, it's so great, even for a grown up," as they put it, because the story is kind of like, if you're old, they let you know. It's a really funny book, especially if you're older. So but it's a good book that you guys can read with your families. And I also do have books for older readers. If you're in the Michigan area or you like to travel, I have a book event that is coming up. I just emailed it to people who are on my email list, which make sure you guys are signed up on my email. It's Once Upon a Book. It's in Frankenmuth, Michigan. I'm Googling it really quick. It's this month, July 22nd. Yes, July 22nd and 23rd. I think 22nd is the night of like the ball, and the 23rd is the actual book signing. So if you are going to that, I will be there and I will have my books there to sign. I do have a pre-order form. I think if you go on their site for it, you can find my pre-order form to sign up and make sure that you'll have an autographed book there. So I'm doing that, and I will also be at Motor City Comic Con in October. I don't remember the date off the top of my head, but it is in October. If you Google it, it's pretty easy to find. Motor City Comic Con. It's the biggest comic con event in the Metro Detroit area, in the state of Michigan. So they've been doing it for a long time. Been going there a long time. So I hope to see some of you there. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. You guys know that I like to start off with something funny. I don't have a meme. I'm just going to show the president. I'm just going to show the president and part of his speech today. As he gave a speech regarding his executive order, he also made comments about the assassination of the former Japanese prime minister. But the thing that people are talking about, that his comms team are trying to deny that that he had a gaffe. And I don't know why they fight so passionately to denounce the gaffes as if we didn't all hear them and respond to them and are laughing and going to make merchandise and all sorts of things. I don't understand why they push back. They just need to be like, oh, he's old and just let it be. Or not even his age. Biden has always like made sort of gaffes. He's just a gaffe machine. So they just need to not make it into a bigger thing than what it is. But this one's funny.
Power. It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line. Women are not without electoral and or political, or maybe precise, not and or political power. That's another way of saying that you, the women of America, can determine the outcome of this issue. I don't think the court, or for that matter, the Republicans.
Okay, so if you didn't catch it, I'm going to play it again.
Power. It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line.
End of quote. Repeat the line. End of quote. Repeat the line. So there's a White House comm staffer, which a lot of these people have quit, but this actually someone had retweeted this staffer and was like, this is why this particular staffer has decided to stay, because they're like just doubling down. They're the person who's willing to double down on the nonsense. And they're like claiming that he said, let me repeat the line, as like to be clear. And it's like, but he said, end of quote, repeat the line. Like he's clearly reading off the teleprompter, like Ron Burgundy from The Anchorman. They're like, if you put something on the teleprompter, he will read it. I watched that movie not too long ago. My sister put on while we were eating dinner, but that's what Biden is in that moment. Like, end of quote, repeat the line. And he's had to have cue cards that was like, you stand up or sit down, just really, really specific things. And I don't know how specific other people have had to be with other presidents, but it's seeing his cue cards and how they handle him like he is a demented old man who doesn't know up and down is pretty fascinating. I'm sorry, like he's a pro. He's been doing this for a long time, been in government a long time. He was a vice president for 8 years. Okay, he should know when it's like end of the quote, repeat the line, and like that's not something that you're supposed to be saying while you're just reading. So he's not all there. He's not as sharp as he used to be, and I don't think anyone who has an honest bone on their in their body can deny that. And the White House literally trying to be like, "Oh, it's not a big deal. It didn't," or just pretend it didn't happen, and that he said something that he did not say. We all just heard him right say, "End of quote." Repeat the line. So that's going to be the new thing everyone is saying. End of quote. Repeat the line. That's Joe Biden. Daily Wire put out a poll um, that it was like, "What's your favorite Biden line?" And maybe it was Ben Shapiro who retweeted. I'm trying to think about where I saw. I did vote, and it was between "You Know the Thing" and I can't remember the third one. And this one, I voted for this one. I voted for that one. "You Know the Thing." I mean, the "You Know the Thing" it was pretty bad because he couldn't like remember like was it like a line from the Constitution or Declaration of Independence, something like really really well known. He couldn't remember, and he's like, "You know the thing," and it was a flippancy of the writing it off, but he just couldn't remember. Okay, so that was pretty bad. But the end of quote, repeat the line, there it's just like something's not connecting. So that was my favorite that I picked out of the three. I'm sure we will find more along the way. So let's talk about Biden and his speech since we're on the topic, on the subject. So he has signed an executive order because he thinks that the Supreme Court is exercising, in his words, exercising raw political power and not making rulings based on the constitutionality of the actual law. Now, here's a question for you. Where in the Constitution is your right to an abortion? Doesn't exist, right? So it is a an issue that is supposed to be left up to the states prior to the Roe v. Wade ruling, which get, you had Ruth Bader Ginsburg who thought that it was really strange when Roe v. Wade came into place and has commented on it because normally courts do not do such sweeping, broad things like that. And it overrided a lot of state laws that had restrictions or flat out had it banned. Like you don't have a right to an abortion in Michigan. Like it's a ban thing. Our governor has defied the Michigan Constitution. She's trying to sue to claim that it says that it has a right. It does not, and this has already been taken up by the circuit court. And I think in 1992, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not mistaken that the court took it up. I just 1992. I think it's the year, but it's been settled before. But she's trying to use her governor powers to directly bring it to the Michigan Supreme Court. And right now we do have a left-leaning bent, and we do have some activists on the court. So if it goes that way, there's a possibility that she'll be able to get what she wants done, not because it's right or it's just, but because one, she's a coward, doesn't want to take it actually to the ballot box, and two, she doesn't care about what our Michigan Constitution says. Same goes for our Attorney General. So you have these people who are upset about norms and wanted Biden back because of norms and hated Trump because of violation of norms. When these people don't care about norms and law and what the people actually want, they care about their ideology and their agendas and so on. So Biden has decided that the Supreme Court is illegitimate, that they are not following the laws or interpreting the laws correctly, though he did not make the case on the stand of how they were wrong. If you read some of the stuff that's going with the opinion of the minority, a lot of it's just like feelings bursting out of their chest like an alien baby, just like like it's like, where are the facts, ma'am? Like they the opinion, Alito's opinion is really good. I don't know how many people like took the time to really go through it and read it, but it's a really good opinion. It's a really good opinion. Roe v. Wade wasn't a good opinion. And people have acknowledged that throughout the years, that there have been issues with it, but they just want it because they want to protect the institution of abortion. Now, the way that Biden and other politicians and the health secretary have been talking about wanting to protect abortion, make sure that they do it across state lines, which I don't think states really would be able to prosecute other people across state lines. And if that got taken all the way to the Supreme Court, was it Gorsuch? No, I think it was maybe Kavanaugh who alluded that there wouldn't be enough votes there for that. So if people want to be able to freely travel between the states to have their abortions, I don't know what you could really do about that. But as far as the federal government trying to facilitate that and use federal dollars to make that happen, the Hyde Amendment is not supposed to go to that kind of stuff. So are they trying to get rid of the Hyde Amendment? Well, Biden has said that on the campaign trail. Are they just going to ignore it before they even get rid of it? That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. So Biden's making executive orders that aren't constitutional. Maybe people like Whitmer will try to use it as cover while they continue to act in an illegal, egregious sort of manner. But you can't talk about how you want to go to norms and you're willing to just throw everything out when you don't get your way. And it's pretty crazy because they've gotten their way for so long doing so much. But Democrats take it so personally when they lose. Now it hurts to lose, don't get me wrong, but like Republicans, some of them in power, just kind of like, oh, that sucks. Like we'll get them next time, and and it's like they don't mind being the party of opposition, and Democrats don't like being the party of opposition. They are like the party of we are going to undermine you as much as we can, right? They take it really, really personally when they lose. But another thing about Biden's speech is there's been a lot of propaganda as of late surrounding miscarriages, and he's really leaned in that as well. And this sort of propaganda is what's actually going to get people killed.
A patient comes into an emergency room in any state in the union. She's expressing and experiencing life-threatening miscarriage. But the doctor is going to be so concerned about being criminalized for treating her, they delay treatment to call the hospital lawyer who is concerned the hospital will be penalized if the doctor provides the life-saving care. It's outrageous. I don't care what your position is. It's outrageous. And it's dangerous. That's why this executive order directs the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, to ensure all patients, including pregnant women and girls, experiencing pregnancy loss, get emergency care they need under federal law, and the doctors have clear guidance on their own responsibilities and protections, no matter what state they're in.
So, when you talk to people who are pro-life, they say they are against the deliberate killing of the unborn. If it is a triage situation, where you have to prioritize one life or another, that is different. But the situation that he's describing, if someone is coming to the hospital and they're having like a really, really severe emergency, like especially if it's far along in your pregnancy, inducing a labor is going to be much safer than busting out the suction cups and the forceps. So I don't even know what they're talking about. I don't even know what he's talking about, but there are people who are like, I've heard more talk about ectopic pregnancies than I have ever in my life the last few months. And people keep mentioning that and miscarriages. There was even a celebrity who compared her miscarriage and was talking about abortion as if her miscarriage was an abortion. Now, a miscarriage is called a spontaneous abortion, but it's really not what people are talking about in this entire debate. Like, we don't want the deliberate, like your deliberate intention is that it is a success. Your goal is that a person between the mother and the child you want the child to out of this world. Like, that's your goal. That's why you came in for your procedure. That's what we're like fighting against. But you don't need to sign an executive order for doctors to take care of their patients and to actually save lives. that's like a virtue signaling nonsense, but spreading the sort of misinformation and hysteria that these doctors could really, really, be fined if they're saving a patient is what's going to lead to more people being, oh gosh, what do I do in this situation, where they're more concerned about their job and being sued and being jailed and whatnot, that a woman dies out on the table because of inaction, and that's malpractice. That's not anything to do with like abortion. But people are really, really spreading this sort of hysteria because they need the hysteria, because what they advocate for isn't pretty. It isn't pretty at all. So they're making up this sort of narrative so they can make it seem like it's for the women. We're trying to fight for the women. We're trying to fight for the women. When the truth is, their their priorities are not there. Not for the goodness of the country, not for the goodness of women. Like, again, I'll mention yesterday we talked about Senator Elizabeth Warren, who was so upset with pregnancy crisis centers in her state because they outnumber abortion clinics 3-1. And she complained because women will go into these centers meaning to have an abortion, and they're trying to convince people not to kill their baby. And that's a problem for Elizabeth Warren. Why is that a problem? If you really, really feel like abortion is a necessary evil, Biden used to say it's not a right, it's a tragedy. That's what he said in 2006. But if that's, and a lot of people feel that way, that they don't like abortion, but they feel that it has to be necessary in some circumstances. If that is so, it should not be option A, it should not be option B, it should not be option C, it should be all the way at the end at option Z. It should be all the, like, last resort. Like, is there something else that we can do for the woman, for her child? If she doesn't want to raise it, she could leave it at a hospital. She could leave it at a fire station. Someone else, she could have an adoption plan. There's something else that can be done. Maternal death it's always tragic, but very rare. People who have a real big fear about that, you're more likely to die in a car accident. Like, it's not like you're talking about less than 800 women versus like 3 million births per year, which people use maternal death as an example to inflame like hysteria, to justify it. Like, there are things that we can do to protect women. There are things we can do for prevention. There are things we can do if she gets pregnant to help her along, whether she wants to keep her baby or not keep her baby. But those aren't the discussions that we're really having. It seems right now that they are so gung-ho on protecting the institution of abortion. And Elizabeth Warren, that made me so hot the other day when I found out, like, her coming for the pregnancy crisis centers. I'm like, you're really, really revealing who you are right now, and the agenda. It's really, really ugly, and it's really, really evil. These companies that are like, yeah, we'll help you get to where you want so you can terminate your pregnancy. We're not going to give you more money. We're not going to give you childcare. We're not going to make sure that someone's in the building watch your kid. Like, we're not going to do that. But you want to take care of that little problem so you can be back on Monday morning? Sure, we'll help you out with that. That is dystopian. That is gross. And I'm not for like mandatory like childcare and all the other stuff if it's too much of a burden on businesses. But it's like, but you're showing people where your priorities are, and it's really, really gross. Really, really gross. So I know what to say about Biden other than this is really, 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 truly evil. And I do not think that most Americans are on board with the sort of extremism that they have on this issue. I don't believe that's true. And that's one of the reasons why they want to protect abortion federally, so they don't have to make this an issue that they talk about state to state, neighbor to neighbor, friend to friend. They don't want that. They just want that blanket protection to keep this industry going. And by the way, fetal remains are sent to universities for research. They're sent to pharmaceutical companies. Apparently, they power the streets of Baltimore when they burn them for waste. I'm not kidding. Our FDA purchased fetal remains for fresh, never frozen fetal remains for humanized mice experiments. That sounds gross and creepy. Like, there's an entire industry that is driven to keep this going, and including Planned Parenthood and their PAC, and they fund these people who want to keep them in business. It is a vicious cycle, an absolute vicious cycle that at the end of the day is not meant to help women, not meant to help children. It's just to protect abortion. And they don't care about the women who regret them. And even when women who've had regretted their abortion speak out, they're like, well, that's just your experience and I need to have the right to do that. It's like, oh, no, you shouldn't have the right to do that, but take someone else's life like that. But why? What is wrong with listening to wisdom and perhaps changing your mind? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with trying to persuade people to do the right thing? What is wrong with that? There's a scripture in Proverbs where it talks about how fool despises wisdom, obviously. so on par for what we have today. So, but Biden is what he's pushing is not constitutional. And if he has to end up in court, I guess that's where he likes to go. Because they didn't believe that they had the constitutional power, and they didn't to push the OSHA mandates, and they got owned in court in regards to like forcing everyone to do that. But they did cause a lot of division within the country, a lot of uncertainty. I know I had sisters that like were concerned about their jobs and whether they'd still have their jobs if they didn't get vaccinated. It was a really annoying time. This is not a president that wanted to take people back to norms. Not in the least bit. Speaking of not taking people back to norms, the White House was asked about Kavanaugh, we know that people were protesting outside of justices' homes, but he's also being like harassed at restaurants. And they stuck up for people wanting to do that as long as they're not.
People should be allowed to be able to do that
in a restaurant.
If it's outside of a restaurant, if it's peaceful, for sure.
Really?
Peaceful protest. Your first question to me was intimidation.
So these justices, because protesters do not agree with an opinion that they signed on to, have no right to privacy, is what you're saying.
But Peter, this is people have the right to, this is what a democracy is. People have the right
to privacy?
Of course people have a right to privacy, but people also have a right to be able to protest peacefully.
Is that
peacefully? It's the intimidation and the violence that we condemn.
So, why do you think they're peacefully protesting outside of the restaurant? Why do you think they're peacefully protesting outside of their homes? Why do you think that is? And it is illegal to try to get a justice to change their opinion. Now they just want to punish him, but it is possible that something like this is going to come back to the Supreme Court with Biden's executive order, obviously. So, but the White House, the DOJ, they didn't do anything about people illegally protesting it. The protests were illegal. You are not supposed to be protesting and doing that sort of intimidation with the purpose of trying to change a judge's opinion. That's exactly what they were doing. People should be able to go out and eat steaks and whatever and be in restaurants without being harassed. And you know what? When the White House was asked about people harassing cinema over, I think it was the filibuster, if I'm not mistaken. I may be mistaken, but one of the issues they were upset about, obviously, is about something with a 50 threshold vote, and her and Manchin wouldn't sign on, and people were following her into bathrooms. There was a wedding I think she was at, and people were like protesting at the wedding. It was just really, really wild how people are just bothering all these people out, but they're trying to live their lives like normal people. And the White House is kind of like, well, that's part of the process. That's what Biden said. It's part of the process. It's just part of the process. And people should be able to peacefully protest. And, but when it's on theirs, people are harassing people on their side. People don't take too kindly to it. And you know what? There are people who are protesting, like going at people's homes and stuff in Michigan during like the lockdown and stuff. I didn't like people going to people's homes like that. I didn't like that at all. And And there are people on the right who were speaking up against it, though there were people on the right doing it. But where's all the people on the left saying, leave these people alone? Let that man eat. Like, you can take your issues and your problems to the ballot box. You don't have to keep harassing a justice who did the right thing, by the way. Who did the right thing. They're protesting, saying stupid slogans that don't mean anything. It'd be different if you wanted to have like a legal debate with them. They don't want that. They just want to scream their feelings, vomit them out. That's what they're doing. They don't even care if he was right. They're just care that they're emotionally scarred. That's all that matters. And the White House, they are okay with intimidation tactics and even tactics of violence, I would say, if it sways their way, goes their way, if it fits their narrative. Of course, they'll say like, oh, we condemn that, but they don't condemn things in the strongest of ways. They don't. Like, how on it are they about these terrorist attacks with these pregnancy crisis centers? I don't see that being like a super priority for them. But those are the norms, guys. That's why you voted him in. The norms. Another thing that was pretty stunning. She was also asked White House press secretary about the oil being our strategic reserves that are reserved for emergencies. I think we're at our lowest capacity since like the 1980s. They released it and they said it's supposed to release like some of the burden to Americans. Turns out Reuters did an article talking about how they are going to different parts of the world, into Europe, into Asia, and other places. And so she was asked about it and didn't have a great answer.
Was the administration aware that some of that oil could end up going overseas?
So when it comes to the oil, it is something that oil companies decide. What we cannot control what oil companies do with their oil, and so you should ask the oil companies about where they are sending the oil they purchase and why. That is not something that we can answer from here. The Department of Energy can't dictate.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. It's our emergency oil. You can't stipulate that the oil has to specifically go to American supply. You can't do that. It's our supply. But here's something interesting that I didn't know at this time yesterday when I talked about this. The Reuters article is that the Federalist is reporting, but I think the Washington Free Beacon is maybe the ones who broke it. But Biden sold oil from emergency reserves to Chinese gas giant tied to his scandal-plagued son. Oh, snap. On Wednesday, Reuters revealed that more than 5 million barrels of oil from the National Strategic Petroleum Reserves were sent overseas as part of President Joe Biden's latest release initiated in March. Some of that oil went to India, some of to the Netherlands, and some was sent to China, where the president's son has engaged in years of potentially criminal business activity, embroiling the Biden White House in a scandal since the 2020 campaign. On Thursday, the Washington Free Beacon published new details about the Chinese oil shipments from the U.S. energy reserves that Biden promised were tapped to ease the pain that families are feeling in the United States from high energy prices. The Biden administration sold roughly 1 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to a Chinese state-controlled gas giant that continues to purchase Russian oil, a move the Energy Department said would support American consumers in combat Putin's price hike. The Beacon's Colin Anderson reported Biden's Energy Department in April announced the sale of 950,000 Strategic Petroleum Reserve barrels in Unipec, the trading arm of China Petroleum Corporation. That company, which is commonly known as Sinopec, was wholly owned by the Chinese government. Sinopec is also tied to Hunter Biden, whose private equity firm BHR Partners bought a $1.7 billion stake in the company 7 years ago. Hunter Biden's lawyer told the New York Times in November that the president's son no longer holds any interest, directly or indirectly, in either BHR or Chanatel's Scantillus, I think is how you say it short of. According to the Washington Examiner, however, Hunter Biden remained listed as a part owner of the firm as late as March. Very interesting. Very interesting. So if you're running for office, my suggestion is that you go to gas stations and you ask people while they're getting gas, like, did you know that some of our strategic oil reserves are going to China, and who is still buying Russian oil? And one of the companies is tied to Hunter Biden. I would read this article, read like some of the links, and I would make that argument. Now, you don't have to be running for office. You could just start small conversations. I start small conversations with people, and people are not happy about these gas prices, and people are not going to keep buying it that it's Putin's price hike. But when you go into our energy reserves that are supposed to be for emergencies, just so you can alleviate a couple of cents so you don't look as bad when it comes election time, and then you go ahead and you sell some of that oil to other places around the world, including China, who's still buying Russian oil, with that company being tied to your son. That is really, really scandalous. It's not a good look, bro. It's really not a good look. Really, 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 really not a good look. Gosh, two more stories that I want to talk about before I get to what happened in Japan and the response. I don't like some of our responses nationally, well, domestically to this. It's been a year since Biden claimed that we were not going to lose in Afghanistan with the Taliban being taken over. So I just wanted to remind people of what happened.
Is a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable?
No, it is not. Because you have the Afghan troops have 300,000 well equipped as any army in the world, and an air force against something like 75,000 Taliban. It is not inevitable.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Your own intelligence community has assessed that the Afghan government will likely collapse.
That is not true.
Can you please clarify what they have told you about whether that will happen or not?
That is not true. They did not reach that conclusion.
So what is the level of confidence that they have that it will not collapse?
The Afghan government and leadership has to come together. They clearly have the capacity to sustain the government in place.
And do you see any parallels between this withdrawal and what happened in Vietnam, with some people feeling...
None whatsoever. Zero. What you had entire brigades breaking through the gates of our embassy. 6, if I'm not mistaken. The Taliban is not the North Vietnamese army. They're not remotely comparable in terms of capability. There's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of a embassy of the United States from Afghanistan. It is not at all comparable. So the question now is, where do they go from here? That the jury is still out. But the likelihood there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely.
Yeah. So obviously he was, I don't want to say wrong. I want to say lying. Like, they knew better. He was told different things. And it was like, by the way, Biden has been in office so long. What they're talking about in Vietnam, he was actually like in the Senate at the time. Like, that's how long he's been involved with our politics. But you did have people falling from airplanes as people were trying to escape. People who were left behind, trapped. People who had to pay to be like fled out of there. I don't know if they fixed that or waived people's fees or not. They claim that they did, but then it was still like on the website at like the State Department or something. It was just really wild, everything that happened. And then afterwards, Biden's just like, well, there was nothing what we could do. Like who could have did it better? Like, how could we have known when there's obviously intelligence that he was given, that reporters heard, that they asked about, that he just lied about. And that was a moment when many Americans saw that we don't have a competent and honest leader, and he's not a man who's capable of rising to the moment. And apparently he's never been that man. It would almost be comical that you could spend your life wanting to be president, and then at this really, really old age, when you're probably when there's no way you're gonna like survive a second term. Not no way, but like it's not for the best interest of Biden or anyone else. But you get this one term to show what you're made of, and you just completely collapse. And it's not because there were so many things before you got in, so many different crises that you had to solve, that you have to give him some kind of handicap. First of all, you campaign to be president, right? So that's your responsibility. You got to own what you decided to take and what you claim that you were going to fix. I don't like all this, like, let's blame our predecessor for like 3-4 years. I don't like that. Though he continuously tries to do it. Like, he came in, there was COVID, it was bad. But he came in and spent more money than he didn't need to. There was already a vaccine, if you want to call it a vaccine, but there's something you can inject yourself with, right? That was already made. They didn't have to do Operation Warp Speed when he got in office. They were already, like, before he even got in office, they were already administering the drug to people. So that was done. The economy, you just basically had to let people go back to work. And then he put this pressure with his OSHA mandates, with people taking the vaccine, where they had people afraid to work, and people afraid that they were going to lose their jobs, and people who did lose their jobs. So he created a lot of his own issues, a lot of his own problems, and he keeps saying Afghanistan, well, Trump was going to get out, so we had to honor that. He has not honored many other things that the Trump administration put in place, including good policies at the border that they stripped away. So don't tell me that he had to do what he did in Afghanistan, but he certainly did not need to do it in the incompetent manner that he decided to go about it. Pulling out troops in the way that he did, that created such chaos at the airport. And obviously it was a mistake, because they need to bring more people in, but they lost control of the situation. And then when you had the soldiers who were killed, they decided to do a drone strike. They're like, we're going to make these people pay. And then they did a strike. And then what they ended up killing an aid worker. They're like, oh, well, there was a secondary explosion. He was a terrorist. There was no secondary explosion. They lied about that. And the canisters or whatever that they thought were bombs, it was water. And he was bringing it to his village. And this is someone who wanted to come to the United States. And they killed civilians, including children. And I don't know, maybe they would have kept lying about it until like the New York Times reported about it and they were confronted. And guess who paid for that mistake? No one. No accountability for that. No accountability. So that was a critical moment in the Biden administration, when people got to see a peek behind the curtain, and they knew that Oz was not only just a man, an incompetent, withered old man, far past his prime. He never had a prime. He was always an illusion. In our minds, not my mind, I always knew he was, but in the minds of many, and in the minds of himself and the people around him, Biden was never capable of rising to the moment. Never, not once. An example of the madness of this administration, situation down at the border with the whipping of migrants. I think we remember those pictures. We did cover it on the show at the time. They were split reins, not really capable of really be used in that manner. And people who knew horses knew that. I don't really know horses, but I can look stuff up. They weren't whipping migrants. The people who took the photos and who were there knew that they weren't whipping migrants, but the White House decided to go ahead and entertain the narrative and push it along. So here's a video. I think the GOP put this together.
To see people treated like they did, horses barely running them over, people being strapped, It's outrageous. I promise you those people will pay.
I was outraged by it. It was horrible and deeply troubling, and there needs to be consequence and accountability.
Those officers are on administrative duties. They are not performing their typical law enforcement duties.
They will be, an investigation underway now, and there will be consequences.
It also evoked images of some of the worst moments of our history, where that kind of behavior has been used against the indigenous people of our country, has been used against African Americans during times of slavery.
The horrific video of the CBP officers on horses using brutal and inappropriate measures against innocent people.
It's an embarrassment, but it's beyond an embarrassment. It's dangerous. It's wrong. It sends the wrong message around the world. It sends the wrong message at home. It's simply not who we are.
Yeah. So if either one of any of those people were adults, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, they would have been like, they would explain the situation. They would have got the information, explained it, and been like, they weren't whipping the people. They were just out there doing their job, trying to protect the border. And no one was whipped. If people were doing something wrong, we can look at it, investigate it, and we can look at it. And if something was done inappropriately, then people will pay for that. Interesting enough that they seemed like they had more aggression towards these Border Patrol agents who did nothing wrong than people who I just mentioned who drone striked kids in Afghanistan, but whatever. But they decided they had to have an investigation, and they still wanted to do something. The Daily Caller reported U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CPB, has proposed 2 charges against the Border Patrol agents involved in the alleged whipping of migrants in the Del Rio, Texas, according to documents obtained by the Daily Caller News Foundation. The first charge is for poor judgment for instructing non-citizens to go back to Mexico, or words to that effect, while the second is for unsafe conduct for maneuvering the agent's horse in a way that caused a non-citizen to fall backward into the Rio Grande River, thereby compromising their safety for the non-citizen, yourself, and your horse. What? For poor judgment and for making them fall backwards? Because if someone falls while you're chasing them in pursuit, you should be punished for that. That's crazy. These proposals are not yet final. The CPB is expected to announce the results of its investigation into the agents as soon as Friday, according to the people familiar with the matter and not authorized to speak publicly. It's unclear how many agents will be charged. You knew, or you should have known, that using your horse to block a non-citizen from exiting the water at the boat ramp created an unsafe situation, particularly for the non-citizen. They keep calling them non-citizens instead of illegal aliens, but also for you and your horse, the charges read. We consider that your misconduct received a significant media attention and had a negative impact on the reputation of the agency. The alleged whipping took place in Del Rio, Texas on September 19th, when thousands of Haitian migrants were present under the international bridge. The accused agents were on horseback and seen in images appearing to use their horses' reins to steer and encircle the migrants so they would turn back. And they're not supposed to turn back because they're not supposed to be here. They're just doing their job. But it doesn't matter. They want to punish people for doing their job, because how can you not see this whole situation and see how they've run the border, see how they're willing to punish these people, and not suspect that they're doing many of these things on purpose? How could you accidentally do a worse job than what Biden is doing? How could you accidentally do a worse job? And if it's all on accident, that is scary. That is so scary. And we can only imagine the horrors if it was deliberate. But it's pretty bad. But this is a choice to just be ridiculous and unjust to these people who are doing their jobs. but the Biden administration itself knows that they didn't do anything wrong.
Likewise, OPR investigators determined that the agents involved in the Del Rio activity were not carrying whips. The third area focused on the individual actions of the agents. Despite initial appearances, after a careful review and analysis of videos, photos, and eyewitness accounts, this included an interview with a photographer on the scene and other members of the media, OPR found no evidence Border Patrol agents involved in this incident struck any person with their reins intentionally or otherwise.
Yeah, but they don't care about the striking of the reins. They care about the, like, how dare you? You made them feel uncomfortable and creating an unsafe situation. Like, so this article from the Daily Caller came out some hours ago. This hearing, I think, at least was posted about more than an hour ago. So I'm not sure if they're going to press charges for ridiculous stuff or not, but it's pretty wild to me, but I'll keep you guys updated. But we live in a really wackadoodle world. Final thing I want to mention, there was a tragedy in Japan. Abe Shinzo was assassinated. He was the former prime minister, good friend to the United States, has worked, was a good friend of Trump, and also worked with Obama and, the Biden administration. So I don't understand Biden's statement. It seems so flat to me, especially since they tried to incorporate a bit of like gun control, but a lot of evil people are happy today, like the Chi Coms are happy about this. But Japan was willing to stand up for Taiwan and for freedom and for liberty and democracy, and he was a beloved prime minister, and it is a tragedy. And I'm not playing the video out of respect. It's pretty easy to find if you want to see it, but the security, I don't know, they just the man who shot him was like there around the scene for a good while. And when the first shot went off, it just kind of seemed like people were standing around, and just I don't know if they were just so stunned, just so shocked, but it looked like a security failure, to be honest. I don't, there's still evolving details, but he did make his own like homemade gun. And so Biden decided to interject a bit about gun control in his statement. So there was a written statement, and he also made remarks earlier this morning. Oh gosh, that looks really small on my screen. I am stunned, outraged, and deeply saddened by the news that my friend Abe Shinzo, former prime minister of Japan, was shot and killed while campaigning. This is a tragedy for Japan and for all who knew him. I had the privilege to work closely with the prime minister, Abe, as vice president. I visited him in Tokyo and welcomed him to Washington. He was a champion of the alliance between our nations and the friendship between our people. The longest serving Japanese prime minister, his vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific will endure. Above all, he cared deeply about the Japanese people and dedicated his life to their service. Even at the moment he was attacked, he was engaged in the work of democracy. While there are many details that we do not know, we know that violent attacks are never acceptable and that gun violence always leaves a deep scar on the communities that are affected by it. The United States stands with Japan in this moment of grief. I send my deepest condolences to his family. Yeah, so I don't know, it was like a weird like homemade shotgun type of like device that I don't know, was almost like bomb like from what I know about it. So it's even weird to like throw it in with like gun violence. Like of course violence is bad, especially when it's an assassination, but I don't know, to interject like our gun control, gun issues with a political assassination of this magnitude is really, really petty. Really, really weird. And he also did it when he spoke earlier today as well.
The fact is that one thing did get my attention, that this is the first use of a weapon to murder someone in Japan. And I think we have thus far have 3,000, I won't hold me to the number, 688 between 3,000 and 4,000 cases. They've won.
Yeah, so of course that's not the first time someone was like killed with a weapon. I'm pretty sure he meant like a gun. Still not accurate, obviously, but and again, it was like a homemade device, and there was an CNN article that they posted not so long ago talking about like different countries and their gun violence, and they talked about Japan, and evil men will find a way to do some kind of harm. And I don't know what all the motivations of this person is and how deeply they meant the political ramifications and who all they might have been acting on behalf of. But to, I don't know, include our own kind of US drama and something like that, again, I just think it's really, really petty and tacky. Really petty and tacky, but that's just the Biden administration. And NPR had some wild headlines as well, that they deleted the first one and then like retried it again. Former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, a divisive our conservatives, is one of the nation's most powerful and influential figures, has died after being shot during a campaign speech Friday in Western Japan, hospital officials said. So that the first one is one they deleted, and then they and the second one that they put up instead, they called him an ultra nationalist. So the way, first of all, we need to defund NPR. It seems like they phrase these certain things to be like, yeah, this is the news, this is what happened, and this is a bad thing, but also don't feel too bad about it because he's an ultra nationalist. And being a nationalist isn't a bad thing, but I think they're aware of the fact that they associate it so much, or people associate it so much with Nazis, and they want you to not think it's too bad that this happened to this person. That's, at least that's how I read it. That's how other people are reading it. Headlines can be so weird when people die. Like when there was a one terrorist who was killed, they're like the auspicious scholar. That's what how the Washington Post put it. But other people pass away and they got to mention how they're such a controversial figure. Why can't you just be like, longest serving prime minister of Japan killed, assassinated in Japan? Like, how hard is that for a headline? How hard is that for a headline? But it is a developing story. Oh gosh, really, really, really incredible that this happened. And my heart goes out to the people of Japan. And if there's some kind of like larger conspiracy to this, I hope it's figured out and people are brought to justice. But he was a good political figure and a friend to the country. And keep his family in your thoughts and your prayers. And again, thoughts and prayers, they're not going to turn back time like Superman flying across the planet to undo what happened, but it's a way to let people know that you're thinking about them and also praying that they find the comfort that they need to endure these sorts of tragedies. So again, thoughts and prayers to them. Okay, thank you guys for joining me for the show. Lots of news today. And there's even so many other things to get through, but I got through all that I planned to do today. So that's good. If you guys enjoy what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Appreciate everyone who supports, whether it's a small gift or like $10 or something, or you guys can do more, $50, $100. There have been people have given good amounts, and I'm really grateful for that. It really does help. There are costs obviously associated with what I do with streaming, running the site, traveling, other sorts of stuff. I really appreciate you guys. If you cannot do that or don't want to, it's fine. But please, I appreciate you guys sharing videos, tagging different people, bringing them to the page, encouraging other people to like, to follow, subscribe. Make sure you guys are following me across all my different social media platforms, on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Twitch. All my handles are at Black Tea News. That's black like the color, tea like the drink. The only ones that are different is on Twitter. That one is at True Black Tea. If you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, most of my follow links should be there. You can always go to the website to also see different links and also sign up for newsletters. Check out different articles that I've written. Also check out different merchandise that we have on the store, like the My Money, My Business shirt. Very relevant today. The Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document. And we got the I voted for President Trump, and all I got was historic peace bills, peace deals, just border security, ISIS destroyed. There's gas under $2, tax cut, and this lousy t-shirt. So got that and all kinds of goodies that you guys can check out at the website that does also really support as well. God bless you guys, and I will see you on